If you've done everything you're supposed to do, you've built a career, maintained the relationships, went to therapy, did the self-care, and you still feel absolutely nothing, there are 3 specific patterns in your birth chart that might explain why. I'm going to walk you through these patterns using my chart as an example. And as we go, I want you to check yours, because if you have even one of these, you'll finally understand why doing everything right has left you feeling so empty. So here's the thing about feeling dead inside. It's not random, and it's not because you're broken or because you haven't tried hard enough. There are specific astrological signatures that can create this pattern where you look successful from the outside but feel absolutely nothing on the inside, where you're managing your life perfectly but you're not actually living it. And the wild part is, these patterns don't show up as obvious problems. They show up as you being really good at life, functional, capable, put together. But underneath, you're numb. I'm going to show you 3 chart patterns that create this. I have all 3 of them, which is why I know this territory so intimately. And I'm willing to bet that if you're watching this video, you have at least one of them. Let's go through them. And as I explain each one, check your chart to see if you have it. Pattern number 1 is the Competence Prison. This is when your chart is heavily weighted towards earth signs or Saturn, especially on the angles or in prominent positions. So what this creates is a person who learned very early that their value comes from being useful, from being capable, from having it all together. I have Virgo rising with my Saturn and my 2nd house. And what this meant for me is that I could manage everything. I could handle everyone's problems. I could stay calm in a crisis. I could be the most reliable, most organized, most helpful person in any room. From the outside, people thought I had my life figured out. But here's what they didn't see. I wasn't living. I was performing. Every single day was about doing things correctly, getting things done, being productive, checking boxes. And underneath all of that competence, nothing. Just this hollow feeling of going through the motions. Because when your chart is like this, you don't learn how to just be. You learn how to do. And eventually, you become so good at doing that you forget there's supposed to be something underneath it. Here's how you check your chart for this pattern. Do you have Virgo or Capricorn rising? That's your first clue, because your rising sign is your default mode of operating in the world, and both of these are about functioning over feeling. Do you have Saturn in an angular house? So that would be the 1st, 4th, 7th, or 10th, or Saturn in the 2nd, like I do. Saturn is a planet of structure and responsibility. So when it's prominent, you learn that life is about duty, not desire. Do you have a lot of planets in earth signs, so Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn? Look at your chart. If you see a cluster of planets in earth, you probably default to just handle it mode instead of actually feel it mode. If you have any of these, ask yourself, am I living my life or am I managing it? Because there's a huge difference. The antidote to this pattern isn't to stop being capable. It's to let yourself be messy, to do things badly, to stop performing competence as proof that you deserve to exist. You're allowed to fall apart. You're allowed to not have it together. You're allowed to be human instead of functional. The second pattern is what I call forbidden play. This shows up when your 5th house is empty. It's ruled by Saturn or Capricorn. So the 5th house is the house of play, pleasure, creativity, joy, all the things we do because they make you feel alive, not because they're productive, not because they serve a purpose, just because. My house is empty and in Capricorn, and I cannot tell you how long it took me to realize that I literally did not know how to play. Everything in my life had to have a reason. Even my hobbies were strategic. I could pick up a creative practice and immediately think, how can I monetize this? Or, is this useful? And if it wasn't, I couldn't let myself do it. Pleasure was something I earned after I worked hard enough, which of course was never. There was always more to do, more to fix, more to accomplish. So pleasure just never happened. And this is what creates that dead inside feeling. Because humans aren't meant to just work and function. We're meant to play. We're meant to do useless things just for the joy of them. But if you have this pattern in your chart, you were probably taught, either explicitly or implicitly, that play is a waste of time. that joy has to be earned, that you're only allowed to rest after you've done enough. So here's how to check for this. Look at your 5th house. In your birth chart, find the cusp of your 5th house. That's the line that marks the beginning of that house. What sign is it in? If it's Capricorn, or if Saturn is the ruler of your 5th house, or if you have Saturn actually sitting on the 5th house, this is your pattern. Even if your 5th house is just empty with no planets in it, that can create this too. An empty 5th house often means that this area of life got neglected or wasn't emphasized growing up. And here's the question to ask yourself. When was the last time I did something purely for pleasure with absolutely no ulterior motive, no self-improvement angle, no productivity benefit, no this is good for me justification, just joy? Can't remember, or if that question makes you uncomfortable, you have this pattern. The antidote is terrifying because it requires you to waste time on purpose, to be useless, to do things badly just for fun, to let yourself play without any justification. And at first it will feel wrong. Your Saturn will scream at you that you're being irresponsible. But that discomfort is actually the medicine. Third pattern is what I call conditional worth. This shows up as most commonly as having Saturn in the 2nd house or having hard aspects between Saturn and Venus. The 2nd house is your sense of worth, your values, your relationship to resources and safety. When Saturn is here, you internalize that belief that your worth is conditional, that you have to earn your right to take up space. I have Saturn in Scorpio in my 2nd house. And what this created was this bone-deep fear that there wasn't enough. Not enough money, not enough safety, not enough worth in me. So I worked harder, I achieved more. I tried to prove that I deserve to exist by constantly producing value, by being useful, by never being too much or asking for too much. And here's the sick part. No amount of achievement ever filled that hole, because the hole wasn't real. It was just Saturn's voice telling me I wasn't enough yet. People with this placement often look incredibly successful from the outside because we're trying to earn something that we think we don't inherently have. So we overcompensate, we overfunction, we overgive. But underneath, we feel empty because we're running on this treadmill of, if I just do more, achieve more, prove more, then I'll finally feel like I'm enough. Except that moment never comes. And this is what creates that feeling of being dead inside despite doing everything right. Because you did everything right. You checked every box. You achieved the things. But it still didn't give you the sense of worth you were chasing. Because worth isn't something you earn. It's something you either believe you have or you don't. So here's how to check for this pattern. Look for Saturn in your 2nd house. That's the clearest signature. Also, look for hard aspects between Saturn and Venus. That means if they're in a square, in an opposition, or in a conjunction. Venus is about what you value and how you receive love. And when Saturn is involved, there's usually a belief that you have to deserve these things. You might also have this pattern if you have Capricorn on the 2nd house cusp, or if Saturn rules your 2nd house. The question to ask yourself is, what would I do if I didn't have to prove my worth? If I already knew I was enough, exactly as I am, without changing absolutely anything, how would I live differently? Because that's the antidote. Not achieving more, not working harder, but learning that your existence itself has value, that you don't earn worth, you are worth. I have all 3 of them, Virgo rising with Saturn in the 2nd house, empty 5th house in Capricorn. And for the longest time, I thought the answer was just to work harder at being okay. I went to therapy, I did self-help, I built a career, I maintained the relationships, I checked every single box on how to have a good life list. And I still felt dead inside. Because these 3 patterns were working together to create this perfect storm where I was performing life instead of living it, where I was managing my existence instead of actually experiencing it, where I was so busy being functional that I forgot to feel anything. And when you have these patterns, people often tell you, you're doing great, because from the outside you are. You look like you have it all together. But you know the truth, which is that underneath all the competence and achievement and doing everything right, there's just emptiness. And here's what I've learned. Your chart isn't showing you these patterns to punish you. It's showing you where you've learned to abandon yourself in order to survive. Maybe you learned that love was conditional on being useful. Maybe you learned that play was selfish. Maybe you learned that you had to earn your right to exist. Your chart is just a map of those survival strategies. But here's the thing. You're not in survival mode anymore. You don't have to live life like this. You can choose differently. You can let yourself be messy. You can play without purpose. You can exist without earning it. And when you do, that dead feeling inside, it starts to shift. Because you're finally letting yourself actually live instead of just performing life. So check your chart for these 3 patterns. Pattern 1, Earth sign rising or prominent Saturn, the Competence Prison. Pattern 2, 5th house issues. So that could be forbidden play. And then pattern number 3 is Saturn in the 2nd house or Saturn-Venus aspects. That's conditional worth. Drop in the comments which pattern you have. Or if you have all 3 like I do, let me know because I see you and I get it. And if you want more content focusing on using your birth chart for actual psychological healing, instead of just information, subscribe because that's what this whole channel is about. We're not just reading charts, we're using them as tools for coming back to life. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next week.